Okay, we are ready to begin. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Fort Schuyler Management Corporation Board of Directors meeting. We're glad you're here. I'd like a motion to call the meeting to order.
Make a motion.
So moved. Thank you.
Second.
Great, thank you. I'm pleased to announce and welcome new directors to the Fort Schuyler Board. What I'd like to do is have all of our directors introduce themselves. This may be a little bit like Groundhog Day, particularly for folks that are new. Sorry you have to hear this twice, but I think it'd be great because we're joined by a board member that just came in. So, Mike, we'll start with you.
Mike Efke, board member, Fort Schuyler Management.
Franklin Hecht.
Megan Daly.
Ken Tompkins.
And I'm Joan McDonald.
The bios are, you can see everybody's bios in the, and just to let you know, my heart is very close to certainly Fuller Road, but also Fort Schuyler because I started my career in IBM in Utica.
Yep.
So I know that area very well, and I have great memories of having lived there back in the 70s. I'd also like to welcome Howard Zemsky, who's here. He's president and CEO of Empire State Development. He's also joined with his colleague Kevin Eunice, who's here, and other members from the ESD team that are here as well. We'll hear from Howard in just a few minutes. I'd like to just introduce our minutes from the last meeting. I can't ask you to vote for them, but rather just accept them because many were not on the Fort Schuyler Board. Our last meeting, by the way, was on September 15th of 2016, and many of our new members were not on the board. So I'd just like a motion to accept the minutes, not necessarily to approve them because you weren't here to do so.
Motion to accept.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Second.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. What I'd like to do is just turn the meeting over to Howard Zemsky. Since our last board meeting, the governor has asked ESD to take a leadership role in economic development project managed by FSMC. I'd like to ask Howard to discuss ESD's role and the project of governance and structure.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, I'll do a shortened version of this. We've been actively engaged. We've brought the full depth and breadth of ESD resources to bear on many of the projects, dealing with many of the companies, folks in our finance and legal and loans and grants and business development and general management and really across the multiple disciplines of ESD. We've been working very collaboratively and communicatively with our colleagues at SUNY RF and SUNY Poly. We feel good about where we are in terms of these projects. We've been in touch with all the CEOs. We've met many times with the different businesses. And we feel like we've been able to add value as part of the team in driving economic transformation. This is obviously the governor's highest priority in terms of upstate and economic transformation upstate. There's a lot of important and potentially impactful projects. So I want to thank all of my colleagues at ESD. I want to thank everybody who works at Poly who welcomed us and have worked with us. I want to recognize Bob, who's has stepped up again to a role that I'm sure he wasn't waiting for the opportunity. But I feel like this is a noble work we're doing. It's important. We want to be successful. We want to be ethical. We want to be impactful, and we want to work together as a team. And I think we will be, I think, shortly adopting a lot of policies, that really assure that we can be both successful, finishing these important economic projects, but doing it in a way that is very transparent and adopts a lot of policies that I think assure the ethics of these projects. So it's great to be with everyone. Thank you all for your service. Look forward to working together. Thanks for your leadership, and thanks to Robert as well.
Thank you, Howard. ESD have been a wonderful colleagues to work with as we've gone through this process, I might add. And thank you for your help and your support. Both you and Kevin have been very helpful, and the rest of your team. So thank you for that. I'd just like to quickly overview some governance reforms that have been adopted. The structure remains the same in terms of board composition. There'll be 11 directors, including 4 RF appointments, 4 SUNY Poly Foundation appointments, and 3 joint appointments. ESD will recommend 1 director to each member for appointment and consent all 3 joint appointments. ESD has input on a total of 5 members on this board. As noted, ESD's CEO and president will be a non-voting director. An audit committee comprised of 3 directors who are independent within the meaning of the not-for-profit corporation law, and voluntary compliance with key provisions of the open meeting laws, which we adopted last year. Meetings will be webcast and open to the public. Board agendas and materials will be posted on the website in advance, and there'll be voluntary compliance with key provisions of FOIL, and appointment of a compliance officer to oversee and implement new policies and procedures required by the new bylaws that have been adopted. What I'd like to do now is introduce Resolution 143. This provides for the adoption of an audit committee charter and the appointment of audit committee members. So first, I'd like a motion to introduce Resolution 143, which is the adoption of an audit committee charter and the appointment of audit committee members. Those members are Megan Daly, Joan McDonald, and myself, Bob Sampson. So I'd like a motion for adopting Resolution 143.
Make a motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Comments? All in favor, say yea.
Aye.
Aye. Yea? Nay? Okay, next is Resolution 144. This relates to the appointment of Bob Megna to serve as the president of the corporation. I think as everybody knows, as we mentioned earlier in the prior meeting, Bob has an incredible history of public service. He's currently a senior vice president at Sony Stony Brook. His prior experience as executive director of the New York State Thruway Authority, 5 years as New York State budget director. 5 years. That's dog years. That's really 35 years of public service.
No one was dumb enough to do it that long.
5 years. I was looking, that's dog years. That's really 35 years. He's commissioner of New York State Department of Tax and Finance and deputy director of fiscal studies for the New York State Assembly and Ways and Means Committee earlier in his career. We're delighted that Bob can join us and be appointed as president. And I'd like to introduce Resolution 144 to appoint Bob Megna as the president of Fort Schuyler Management Corporation. Do I hear a motion? Thank you.
I'll second it.
Second. Any discussion, comments? Okay, so moved. Now, the bylaws require the compensation of all officers be recommended by the audit committee. That recommendation was made by the audit committee. The audit committee met and discussed Resolution 144, and in Resolution 144 is the recommended compensation for Bob Megna. That salary is $200,000. He will be working half-time. It will be split jointly between Fuller Road Management at $50,000 each and Fort Schuyler Management at $50,000. That's the recommendation of the audit committee, and so his compensation is set at that number and is part of Resolution 144. Any other comments or questions regarding that? Okay. I think now I turn it over to...
Did we vote that one? We need to vote.
Oh, I need a vote. Yeah, sorry. Apologize. Do we hear a...
We have a motion.
do we have a motion?
Second.
So moved. Second? How about a vote? All in
Aye.
favor? Say
Aye.
Okay, good. Okay.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to turn it over to our new president.
Yes, we just wanted to go through 7 policies, again, designed to promote openness and accountability and sound business practices for FRMC. I'm going to ask the chair if it's possible to go through all of them and have a vote maybe as a bunch, or should we continue to do them separately?
I think we can do them as a bunch. I think the board has had ample time to review these policies, starting with resolution number 145, 146, 147, 148, 149, 150, and 151.
I can quickly go through them again.
That's great.
If you'd like to summarize them quickly, that'd be great.
Sure. The first is the acquisition and disposition of real property, and it establishes procedures for the corporation's policy and instructions regarding the acquisition and disposition of real property. Includes a framework for the appointment of a contracting officer, dissemination and posting of the policy, purchase of real property, inventory, and reporting of status of corporation property and obligations with respect to the pricing and disposition of property. And again, I might add, is pretty common. And again, in a review of all 7 of these, we've looked to both ESD, the State of New York, the Research Foundation, and others for best practices in terms of all of these policies. The second is the conflict of interest and related party transaction policy, and that is a policy designed to ensure that the Fort Schuyler directors, officers, and key employees act in the best interests of the corporation and comply with applicable legal requirements, including the not-for-profit corporation law. The next is the procurement guidelines policy, which establishes guidelines for the use, awarding, monitoring, and reporting of procurement contracts, and it includes solicitation requirements and guidelines covering the evaluation process, approval and award of contract process, contract requirements, and record-keeping and reporting process. The next is the records access policy, and that sets forth the methods and procedures governing the availability, location, and nature of Fort Schuyler's records in conformance with the New York State Freedom of Information law. The next procedure is the whistleblower policy and procedures law. It sets forth Fort Schuyler's policy to afford certain protections to individuals who in good faith report violations of New York State or federal laws, Fort Schuyler's conflict of interest policy, or other instances of potential wrongdoing within the corporation. It's designed to encourage and enable employees to raise concerns in good faith within the corporation without fear of retaliation. The next policy is the risk management and insurance policy. That's designed to reduce or eliminate risks and losses to which Fort Schuyler may be exposed and preserve its assets and earning power to fulfill its mission. It sets forth guidelines for insurance coverage and requires the board to review and improve the insurance program and ensure there is adequate coverage to mitigate potential losses. And last but certainly not least is the debt management policy, which establishes debt management objectives and practices with the goal of realizing benefits such as debt service savings and efficiencies. It governs issuance of bonds and other forms of indebtedness, together with any credit, liquidity, or other security instruments and agreements that may be executed in connection with the issuance of bonds and other forms of indebtedness. I think that's a summary.
Okay. So moved that those number of resolutions. Do I hear a
Make the motion.
motion
I'll
to
second.
accept? Second?
Second?
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Those resolutions are passed. Okay, let me turn now to any public comment that might be. Anyone in the audience that would like to make a comment? We're here to listen. Okay, having no comments, is there any new business to be considered by members of the board? Okay. Our next meeting, we'll post a notice of our next meeting as soon as the date is determined. We'll anticipate that in addition to our quarterly meetings, we will hold monthly meetings if there's a business need to be considered. Now, before we adjourn, I just want to make a comment. I'd like to recognize some key staff members that are here with us: Pat Buckland, Cheryl Casey Rose, Scott Bateman, and Debbie Reichler. That's the staff that we have not had a board meeting since September 15th of 2016 for Fort Schuyler. And those colleagues have been very helpful in making sure that everything has sort of stayed together. And we've really held ourselves together because of their hard work. I'd also like to thank our existing and incoming board members. And just remind everyone that these folks serve as volunteers. This is their own time that they come here because they have a wonderful, steadfast, incredible commitment to making New York State a better state and a more economically viable state. I'd also like to thank my ESD colleagues, the SUNY Research Foundation, the SUNY Poly, and the SUNY Poly Foundation for their help and steadfast support. It's been a great, wonderful experience working with those colleagues. So I want to thank you. Thank you for your team. Thank you for your help. But then most importantly, I'd like to thank Bob Megna for agreeing to come and be our president. I can't think of anybody more qualified, more capable, more experienced, and more knowledgeable to take this job. So I'd like to thank you as well.
Thank you.
That's my final comments. Are there any other comments before we adjourn?
Welcome aboard.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you.
This meeting is now officially adjourned.